Adison never expected the signal to be a voice. Distress beacons were usually nothing more than empty pulses of sound, mechanical pings echoing across the void. But this one sang. It drifted through the static like a whisper carried on the wind. A voice, soft and broken, repeating words that no human system could fully translate. His console displayed symbols it could not decode, yet the rhythm was clear. Someone, somewhere was calling. At first, Adison thought it was interference. The jungles of this uncharted world were dense with strange magnetic storms, and his shuttle had been fighting them since entering orbit. But when he tuned the frequency tighter, the whisper sharpened. It became something more than sound. It became almost human. He leaned closer to the console, his brow furrowed. His ship was alone, too far from any recognized trade lane, too deep into the wild regions of space. No one should have been here. And yet the signal pulsed with a desperate heartbeat, drawing him closer, refusing to let go. Adison guided his shuttle through the canopy, engines roaring against the heavy air. The trees stretched like towers, their roots thick enough to carve canyons in the ground. Every second, the signal grew stronger, leading him toward the heart of the jungle. And then he saw it. The wreck of an alien ship lay half-buried beneath centuries of moss and roots. Its once sleek surface was scarred and cracked, burned by impact, but its shape was unlike any vessel he had ever known. The hull glowed faintly, as if some power still lingered inside, refusing to die. The distress beacon pulsed from within. Adison set the shuttle down nearby, his boots sinking into mud as he stepped into the thick air. The jungle hissed with life, creatures moving just out of sight, their eyes flashing in the shadows. He ignored them, rifle in hand, eyes fixed on the wreck. Something about it pulled at him, deeper than logic, deeper than reason. He felt as though the ship itself had been waiting for him, calling for him, and now that he was here, it would not let him go. He climbed the broken slope of the hull and entered through a jagged tear in the metal. Inside, the air was colder, stiller, charged with a faint hum that ran through the walls. Symbols glowed faintly along the corridors, etched in patterns no human mind had created. He followed the sound. The distress call was no longer just a whisper through static. Now, inside the ship, it sounded like a voice speaking directly into his ears. Soft, trembling, female. Please, someone please. Adison froze. His rifle lifted. His breath caught in his throat. And then, in the dim glow at the end of the corridor, he saw her. She was standing in the heart of the wreck, surrounded by shattered crystal consoles that still flickered with weak light. Her skin shimmered faint silver, glowing softly in the darkness. Her hair, long and flowing, drifted as though water surrounded her, though the air was still. And her eyes, vast, violet, unearthly, locked on him the instant he appeared. The voice in the static was hers. You came, she whispered. Not in broken words. Not in alien tongue. But in perfect human speech. Adison gripped his weapon tighter. Who are you? Her lips curved in something between a smile and sorrow. My name is Liora. I am the last of my crew. And I have been waiting for you. The silence after her words pressed heavy against him. The ship creaked faintly, as if shifting under its own weight. The jungle outside hissed with distant roars. And Adison's heart pounded as though he had stepped not into a wreck, but into something alive. Something ancient. Something watching. Adison kept his rifle raised, the faint light of its targeting laser cutting across the dim chamber. The girl, Liora, as she had named herself, did not move. She stood with her hands folded against her chest, her glowing eyes never leaving him. I should not be here, Adison muttered under his breath. This wreck has been down for years. You should not even be alive. Liora tilted her head, almost curious. The ship kept me alive. It bound me to its core when the crash took the others. I was not meant to wake until the one it called for arrived. Her words froze him. Called for? Yes, she said softly. You, a human soldier. My people saw it before they fell. They said one day, a man of war and loneliness would find me. And when he did, the ship would open again. Adison's stomach tightened. Prophecy, fate. He did not believe in such things. But the way she spoke, the way her eyes shone with certainty, unsettled him more than the jungle's howls outside. I do not believe in predictions, he said firmly. I came because of your signal, nothing else. Her expression softened. Then you came for the right reason. That is what matters. He lowered his rifle slightly, though his grip stayed tight. How long have you been here? Years, she whispered. The jungle has grown over the wreck. The stars have changed above me. Yet the ship would not let me die. It held me in silence, feeding me what little it could, waiting, always waiting. Adison's gaze swept the chamber. Crystals pulsed faintly along the walls. He could feel the hum in the air, almost like a heartbeat. The ship was not dead, and if it had kept her alive, what else had it kept? Why me, he asked. Liora stepped closer. She moved with an otherworldly grace, her bare feet making no sound on the metal floor. Because your kind has what mine does not. The will to endure beyond reason. My people were clever, powerful, and yet we fell. But humans, she paused, studying him with those vast violet eyes. Humans refuse to fall. That is why you are here. Adison wanted to argue, but the words caught in his throat. He thought of his years of service, the endless wars, the loneliness of outposts where silence was his only companion. He thought of the scars across his arms, each one a memory of battles survived by sheer stubbornness. Perhaps she was not wrong. Still, unease prickled at him. If you have been waiting for me, then what happens now? Liora's eyes flickered toward the ceiling, toward the veins of light that ran through the ship. Now the ship awakens. A low rumble shivered through the floor beneath them. The walls pulsed brighter, the air charged with static. Adison raised his rifle again. What did you do? I did nothing, Liora said calmly. It feels you. It knows you have come. And so it begins. Metal groaned as ancient mechanisms stirred to life. Corridors that had been silent for years filled with a low thrum, like something vast breathing again. Panels shifted. Dust fell from the ceiling. Adison's instincts screamed at him to leave. This place is unstable. I am getting you out before it buries itself. He grabbed her wrist, surprised by how cold her skin felt. She did not resist, but her eyes held a shadow of sadness. You cannot leave until it allows you. Before he could answer, the door they had entered sealed with a hiss. The path behind them was gone. Adison cursed under his breath, yanking at the controls near the wall. The panel sparked, but would not open. The ship had locked them inside. Why is it doing this? He demanded. Liora lowered her gaze. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. Because we are not alone in here. The words chilled him more than the jungle's night air. He turned sharply, scanning the chamber. The hum of the ship was no longer steady. It was broken, uneven, like a pulse fighting against something buried deep inside. What else is here? He asked, his voice low. Her answer came with visible pain. Not all of my crew perished in the crash. Some changed. The ship's core tried to preserve them as it did me. But they were broken. Their minds lost. Their bodies twisted. They became something else. Something that should not exist. As if summoned by her words, a distant sound echoed through the corridors. A scrape of metal against metal. Slow. Deliberate. Adison's muscles tightened, his rifle ready. He moved in front of Liora without thinking. How many? 3, she whispered. But they are no longer my people. They are the ship's hunger given form. They hunt whatever enters. The scrape came again, closer now, followed by a guttural hiss that rattled in the walls. Adison's breath steadied. He had fought worse odds before. But the thought of creatures that had once been sentient, now twisted into predators, filled him with a different weight. Then we do not let them hunt us, he said firmly. Liora's eyes widened slightly at his resolve. For the first time, she looked less like a ghost waiting in silence, and more like someone who believed she could be saved. Together, they moved deeper into the wreck, the dim light guiding their way. The ship groaned and shifted as though it watched them. Every corridor seemed alive, every shadow a trap. And behind them, the sound of claws on metal grew louder. The air inside the ship grew heavier the deeper they went. The faint glow of the walls flickered like a heartbeat under strain, throwing long, shifting shadows across the corridors. The sound of claws scraped again, closer this time, echoing down the metal passage like nails across stone. Adison lifted his rifle, the barrel steady though his pulse thundered in his chest. Stay behind me, he said, his voice low and firm. Liora followed without protest, her bare feet whispering against the floor. The faint glow from her skin cast a pale light around her, making her appear almost like a spirit gliding through the ruin. Her eyes flicked toward every shadow, every corner. She knew what was coming. The corridor bent sharply, opening into a wide chamber where vines and roots had broken through the ceiling. Pale fungus clung to the walls, glowing faintly blue, adding to the otherworldly atmosphere. The hum of the ship was louder here, vibrating against their bones. And then, from the darkness above, it moved. Something dropped from the ceiling with a metallic shriek. Adison swung his rifle up just as the creature landed on all fours, the floor shaking beneath its weight. It had once been humanoid. He could see the faint suggestion of limbs, the echo of a face. But its body was warped, stretched unnaturally long, its skin fused with metal in jagged patches. Its eyes glowed a sickly green, and its jaw split open too wide, revealing rows of serrated teeth. The hiss that escaped it was not speech, not thought, but hunger. Adison fired. The blast lit the chamber in a flash, striking the creature square in the chest. It reeled back, screeching, smoke rising from the wound. But it did not fall. Instead, it lunged, impossibly fast, claws slashing. Adison threw himself to the side, rolling across the floor as sparks flew from the walls. The beast's claws ripped deep gouges in the metal where he had stood a moment before. Liora cried out, her voice sharp with fear. Adison came up on one knee, rifle steady. He fired again, striking the creature's arm. The limb twisted unnaturally, half flesh, half metal tearing apart. Still it came forward, relentless, shrieking. Run! Adison barked. But Liora did not run. Instead, she raised her hands. The crystals in the walls pulsed in response, light flaring brighter. A wave of energy rippled outward, throwing the beast off balance for just a breath. Adison seized the moment. He charged forward, slamming the barrel of his rifle under the creature's jaw, and pulled the trigger. The blast tore through its skull. The thing convulsed once, then collapsed in a heap of twisted limbs and broken metal. Smoke hissed from its body. Silence followed, heavy and suffocating. Adison stood panting, rifle still aimed at the unmoving corpse. His ears rang from the shots, but slowly, the quiet returned. Liora lowered her hands, her glow dimming slightly. She looked at the broken body with sorrow in her eyes. That one was called Saran. He was our navigator. Adison glanced at her sharply. That thing had a name? Yes, she whispered. They all did. They were my family. The weight of her words pressed against him, but he pushed it aside. Family or not, if they come at us like that, they are nothing but threats now. Her gaze fell, but she said nothing. Adison stepped closer to the corpse, nudging it with his boot. The fusion of flesh and machine was grotesque. The ship had not preserved this being. It had corrupted it, twisting it into a predator. What exactly is this ship, he muttered. Liora's voice was soft. It was not only a vessel. It was alive, in its way. It bound itself to us, linked to our minds. When it crashed, it tried to hold us together. But some minds broke. The ship healed their bodies, but could not heal their souls. They became this. Adison stared at the walls, feeling the faint pulse beneath the metal. It did feel alive, like something vast and ancient breathing around him. And it kept you whole, he said. She nodded faintly. Perhaps because I resisted. Perhaps because it knew I must wait. I do not know. Another sound echoed through the corridors. This time, not one set of claws, but two. Adison cursed under his breath. We need to move. He pulled Liora along, deeper into the wreck, every instinct on edge. The ship's corridors bent like a maze, some blocked by collapsed metal, others opening into vast chambers filled with broken consoles. The pulse of the ship grew louder the further they went, as if guiding them. Behind them, the hisses grew louder. The other two hunters were awake. At last, they stumbled into a vast central chamber. The heart of the ship. Crystals towered from the floor like jagged spires, pulsing with light. In the center stood a great pillar, veins of energy crawling up its surface. Adison could feel the power in the air, heavy, suffocating. Liora's eyes widened. The core. Adison turned to her. Can you control it? I do not know, she admitted. It kept me alive, but it does not obey me. It obeys only itself. The sound of claws scraped against the chamber walls. Shadows moved above, circling. The other two creatures were here. Adison set his jaw, raising his rifle. Then we make our stand. Liora stepped beside him, her glow brightening. Her voice was steady now. Then we stand together. The hunters dropped from the shadows, snarling. One had arms split into jagged blades of bone and metal. The other moved on all fours like a beast, its face stretched into a permanent scream. Adison's pulse steadied. He had fought impossible odds before. He would do it again. The chamber erupted into chaos. The first creature struck like lightning. Its blade-like arms swung in a wide arc, slicing through the air with a shriek of metal. Adison dropped low, rolling across the slick floor as sparks flew where the strike met the crystal spire beside him. The sound rattled the chamber like a bell. The second beast charged on all fours, its scream echoing through the walls. Adison snapped his rifle up and fired, the blast searing across its shoulder, but it barely slowed. It lunged straight at him, claws outstretched. A sudden flare of light burst from Liora's hands. The crystals in the chamber responded, releasing a wave of energy that threw the creature back into the pillar. It hit hard, snarling, its twisted limbs twitching as it struggled upright again. Adison shot a glance at her. "You can do that again, right?" Her eyes glowed brighter. "Not forever." The first beast roared, rushing at her. Adison spun, firing 3 rapid shots into its chest. Flesh tore. Metal sparked. Still it kept coming, its bladed arms slashing wildly. He ducked under one swing, but the second caught his shoulder. His armor sparked, throwing him to the ground. Pain burned through his arm as he scrambled back, teeth clenched. The creature loomed over him, jaw splitting open. Adison jammed his rifle barrel into its throat and fired point blank. The blast split its head apart, green light spilling out like fire. The body convulsed, twitching violently before collapsing in a heap. Its blade arms gouged the floor as it fell still. Adison pushed himself up, blood trickling down his arm. His breath came hard and fast. "One down," he muttered. But the second was already moving again, circling Liora with a predatory hiss. Its body bent unnaturally, bones snapping into new angles as though it had no limit. Liora's glow dimmed as she staggered back. Her power had weakened with the last burst. Adison lifted his rifle, but the weapon sputtered. The charge was low. 1, maybe 2 shots left. The beast lunged for her. Adison ran. His body moved before thought. He slammed into the creature's side, both of them crashing against a crystal spire. The shock sent a pulse of energy through the chamber. The creature screeched, twisting around, its claws tearing across his armor. Adison gritted his teeth, ignoring the pain, forcing the barrel of his rifle against its chest. He pulled the trigger. The blast tore through its ribcage, throwing it backward into the core pillar. The energy inside the pillar flared violently, veins of light cracking across its surface. The entire chamber shuddered. The creature writhed against the pillar, shrieking, its body burning with the same green fire. Then, with a final, tearing scream, it collapsed into ash and metal fragments. Silence crashed down. Adison dropped to one knee, his rifle falling from his hands. His chest heaved, every muscle screaming. Liora rushed to his side, kneeling beside him. Her glowing hands pressed against his wounds, cool against the burning pain. The light of her touch seemed to ease it, knitting flesh in a way that was not natural. "You should not have done that," she whispered. "You could have died." Adison let out a harsh breath, half a laugh, half a groan. "I have been close before." Her eyes searched his face, wide and sorrowful. "You are different. My people would have run, but you stood between me and them." He met her gaze, those vast violet eyes reflecting the trembling light of the chamber. For a moment, the hum of the ship felt like silence. Then the floor trembled beneath them. The core pillar pulsed brighter, cracks spreading along its surface. Liora's face paled. "It is awake now." The chamber lights flared, bathing everything in blinding white. Adison shielded his eyes, but he could still feel it, the presence pressing against his mind, vast and cold. It was the ship. A voice, not sound, but thought, echoed inside him. Not in words, but in a flood of emotion. Hunger, longing, possession. Adison staggered, clutching his head. What is it doing?" Liora's voice shook. "It wants you. It has chosen. That is why it called you. That is why I was kept alive, to bring you here." Adison's pulse thundered. Chosen for what? Her eyes filled with tears that shimmered like silver. To replace what it lost. To become its new anchor. To bind yourself to it, forever. The light from the core surged, reaching toward him like living tendrils. The air burned with energy. Adison struggled to his feet, pain screaming in his body. No, I am not going to be consumed by some machine. The ship's presence pressed harder against his mind, showing him visions, fleeting images of stars, of endless power, of never dying, never being alone again. The promise of eternity. But beneath it, Adison felt the truth. He would not be himself. He would be the ship, a hollow echo of a man, bound forever in hunger and silence. He met Liora's gaze. You knew this was coming. She shook her head desperately. I only knew you would come. I did not know it would demand this. Please, you must resist it. You must fight. The lights surged again, tendrils lashing out, wrapping around his arms, his chest. The pull was overwhelming, dragging him toward the pillar. His feet scraped against the floor as he fought against it. Liora threw herself forward, her glowing hands pressing against the tendrils. Her energy clashed with the ship's, sparks bursting in the air. She screamed with effort, her body trembling. Adison strained, teeth clenched. Every muscle burned, every wound tore open again. He reached for the knife at his belt, his rifle useless now. The ship's voice roared in his mind, demanding surrender. And Adison roared back. With a surge of raw strength, he slashed the blade through the tendrils. Light shattered in a burst, the core shrieking as if wounded. The tendrils recoiled, releasing him. Liora collapsed against him, her glow flickering weakly. The core's light dimmed, cracks spiderwebbing deeper across its surface. The hum faltered, breaking into stutters. Adison tightened his grip on her, his voice hoarse. Then we finish this. Together. Her eyes lifted to his, and for the first time since he had found her, hope burned bright in her gaze. The chamber pulsed like a dying heart. The great pillar at the center glowed with violent cracks, each pulse echoing like thunder inside Adison's skull. The ship was wounded, but it was not defeated. Adison pulled Liora to her feet. She leaned against him, her glow faint, her breath shallow, but her eyes still burned with determination. We cannot escape until the core falls, she said. It will never release us while it still lives. Adison gripped his knife tighter, glancing at the ruined rifle on the floor. His muscles ached, his wounds burned, but he had survived worse odds. Then we destroy it. The core flared as if in answer, its tendrils lashing outward again. This time, dozens of them burst from the pillar, writhing through the air like serpents. The chamber shook violently, crystals shattering from the walls. Adison shoved Liora behind him as the tendrils whipped toward them. He dodged the first, slashing through the second, his knife sparking against the light. The force of the impact knocked him back, nearly tearing the blade from his hand. Liora raised her hands again, summoning what little strength she had left. The crystals around the chamber glowed faintly, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. She screamed as she forced them to release their power, a wave of energy bursting outward that scorched several tendrils into ash. But the effort drove her to her knees, her body trembling with exhaustion. Adison caught her before she collapsed. Stay with me. Her lips trembled, but she forced a smile. I will, as long as you keep fighting. The core roared, not in sound, but in thought, its hunger pressing harder against Adison's mind. It showed him visions again, endless power, immortality, the stars bending at his command. All he had to do was surrender. Adison's jaw clenched. I have had enough of war. Enough of loneliness. If I surrender, I lose myself. And that is one fight I refuse to lose. He pulled himself upright, knife steady in his hand. The tendrils came again, faster, harder. He cut through them, each strike fueled not by strength alone, but by sheer defiance. Pain tore through his body, but he refused to stop. The pillar cracked wider with every blow, light spilling out like blood from a wound. The chamber shook violently, chunks of ceiling falling around them. Liora forced herself to stand, her hands glowing faint once more. She pressed her palms against the floor, channeling her last strength into the crystals beneath. Energy surged up through the ground, feeding into the pillar. The core screamed, writhing violently. Its own power turned against it, its tendrils thrashing wildly in panic. Adison seized the moment. With a roar, he drove his knife deep into the crack at the heart of the pillar. The blade sank into the light, burning his hand, searing through his flesh, but he held on with every ounce of will. The pillar shattered. Light exploded outward, blinding, consuming the chamber. The force threw Adison and Liora across the floor, heat tearing at their skin, sound like the end of the world filling their ears. And then silence. When Adison opened his eyes, the chamber was dark. The great pillar was gone, reduced to fragments of crystal glowing faintly in the dust. The hum of the ship was silent at last. He coughed, dragging himself upright. His body ached, every muscle screaming, but he was alive. Liora, he croaked. She stirred beside him, her glow faint but steady. Slowly, she lifted her head, her eyes finding his. And when she smiled, it was small but real. "You did it," she whispered. Adison let out a long breath, a shaky laugh breaking from his chest. "We did it." The walls around them groaned, dust falling from above. The wreck was collapsing without the core's power. Adison staggered to his feet, pulling Liora up with him. "Time to go." Together, they stumbled through the broken corridors, the glow of fading crystals lighting their way. The ship moaned around them, pieces of ceiling crashing down, the air filling with smoke and sparks. At last, they reached the jagged wound in the hull where Adison had first entered. The jungle's damp air rushed in, heavy but alive. They stepped out together, just as the wreck behind them gave one final groan and caved in on itself, vanishing beneath the choking vines and roots. Silence returned. Only the jungle remained, vast and untamed. Adison turned to Liora. She stood beside him, her silver skin faintly reflecting the light of distant stars breaking through the canopy. She looked fragile, exhausted, and yet unbroken. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. She looked at the jungle, then back at him. "I do not know. My people are gone. My ship is gone. All that remains is me." Adison studied her. For years, he had wandered the edges of space alone, fighting wars that left nothing behind but scars. He had come here expecting nothing but another wreck, another mystery swallowed by silence. Instead, he had found her. "You are not alone anymore," he said simply. Her eyes softened, shimmering with tears that caught the starlight. She reached for his hand, her fingers cool against his. For the first time in years, Adison felt something break through the emptiness in his chest. Not duty, not survival, but something worth holding on to. Together, they turned toward the jungle. The path ahead was uncertain, but they would walk it side by side. Behind them, the wreck of the alien ship vanished beneath the earth, its hunger silenced forever. And for the first time in a long time, Adison did not feel like a soldier wandering through endless wars. He felt human. He felt alive. And somewhere deep inside, he knew Liora had been waiting for him not because of prophecy, not because of fate, but because sometimes, even in the coldest corners of the universe, two souls were meant to find each other.